This is the IFF TV podcast.
Hello, welcome to Irish Football Fan TV. I am delighted to be joined by Irish Independent journalist and off the ball guests most weeks. On Saturday you'll see him on what's it called, the kickoff?
It'll be Off the Ball Football Saturday. It will be
the Off the Ball show on Saturday. Dan's a regular guest there, so Dan McDonnell has joined me to discuss the Republic of Ireland and Belgium game tomorrow. Just a little preview. I did an opposition preview with the Belgian football podcast this morning, but just from an Irish point of view, can we be optimistic going into this game?
Yeah, I think so. I don't think there's much to there's obviously a lot to fear if you look at the Belgian squad and so on, but I mean, it's a friendly game. It's a sort of there's going to be a full house there. There's pressure games later in the year. This is a bit of a free hit, really. It's you're not necessarily facing the full strength Belgian side, and you would think, okay, Ireland have lost a couple of bodies. I mean, if everyone was fit, like if everyone was here, yeah, you'd like to have Aviva and probably Enda Stevens, and okay, Bazunu's not here, but you have Caoimhín Kelleher, so it's not like you're suffering in that department. So there's a few other players missing, but it's pretty much close to a full strength Irish squad. So I think just there's reasons to be really looking forward to this game, I would have thought.
Yeah, no, I think so as well. So the only thing from a Belgian point of view is they obviously have players coming in who, speaking to the lads this morning on the podcast, they were saying that there's lads coming in who have less than 50 caps and it's their last opportunity to impress Martinez just to try and get a spot in the Nations League and then obviously later on for the World Cup. So that's why he's deliberately put in these players.
Yeah, and listen, it makes sense, but I suppose you can spin that into a positive and say, yes, you've got players who have to make an impact, and yes, the quality will always probably shine through, but they haven't necessarily played together before as an 11, like whatever team they put out. Maybe like at underage, some of them would have an understanding with each other, but it's not like you're dealing with, international football can be tricky sometimes. I suppose this week is unusual in that there's actually a long build-up, like 5 days. It's probably as long as Stephen Kenny has had for a game at the Aviva. I think the only comparable build-up probably would be, just thinking about it now, would probably be the summer camp last year. And maybe the Portugal game at home too. There was a decent enough build up into that, but it was still, I think, not as long as this one. So Belgium have had time to work on the training ground with Anthony Barry, of course, as well as the rest of their sort of high profile staff. But I think, this Irish team, you would hope they can pick up from where they left off in November, and they might have a little bit more understanding of each other than some of the Belgians might.
You were working obviously throughout COVID, same as myself. We were in here, we saw the games. I thought we were playing good football most of the time, just maybe luck wasn't on our side, and if one goal went against us, then we just seemed to never recover from it. I think now we've turned the corner since probably the Serbia game, the 0-0 here at the Aviva. Yeah. I think we've turned the corner since then. I think we just seem a bit more positive. The crowd seems more positive. Obviously, we know with the ticket sales and everything like that, everything seems way more positive. Stephen signed his new contract and everything. But just in terms of the football, I think there's a bit more of an optimism now that we can actually go out, create chances and score goals. And obviously we held our own against Portugal. I know we fell apart in the last couple of minutes away from home, but the home game and then the Serbia game at home, and then we finished the campaign on a high. So there's a lot of optimism going into it.
Yeah, I think it was a strange time. I was looking at the date there, and it is almost a year to the day from the Luxembourg game here. And it's true, being in the stadium for those games was very odd. This sort of, a lot of people here watching this or whatever, are fans. What Lansdowne Road and the areas around on match night, and this bizarre scenario where you're parking around the corner and walking into the stadium through the tunnel to no one there, to the sound of shouts. And you'd be going to closed doors League of Ireland games, but I think it was even more impactful in the Aviva because it's just a big cavernous venue, and you could hear the shouts of, I still remember hearing the shouts of Bazunu, and you're watching these games that have been watched at home by the TV audience with the same importance as any game before, yet in the ground it just felt so bizarre, so different. And I think naturally those games needed to be scrutinised and analysed, but I do think it's not a surprise that it's been better since the stadiums have reopened. I think the two of them are together. I even think in some of the bad performances, or some of the bad results maybe. Like there was actually passages of play where Ireland would have like really good 5-10 minute spells, and if the crowd had been there, they would have fed off it and the noise would have built. But in a closed doors game, it just evaporates to nothing. You know, like the ball goes out of play and there's nothing. There's no recognition. There's no confidence boost for the younger players of the crowd sort of geeing them up. And I actually felt that in a lot of those earlier games, Ireland actually had really good spells, but then they could never really build and follow up on them. Whereas we've actually probably seen in the games in the autumn, even, I mean, I know again it was a friendly, it didn't matter much, but the game against Qatar at home, where Ireland started well and then the crowd responded to it, and then they just kept coming back and coming back and coming back, and there was no breathing space for Qatar at all. And I think that's the difference that the crowd definitely does make. Yeah,
I think it was obviously way more lively when we started scoring early goals, because when people come to games before that, it was like, are we ever going to score? And then when you take the lead early, obviously that gets the crowd going. But I suppose just talking about new players coming in, he mentioned there just in the press conference that Kelleher will start the game against Belgium and probably play both games. But I think this is a real chance for him to make a claim for number one spot now.
I think so. I mean, I still believe that Bazunu probably will be picked. I think it would need something probably remarkable, I think, to happen in the short term for Kenny to have a situation where he doesn't pick Bazunu if all things being equal. But who knows? I mean, maybe Kelleher just comes in and owns it in such a way that it plants a seed. I'm not saying it's an absolute straightforward thing that Bazunu will play, although I think if Bazunu hadn't been ill this week, he would have started against Belgium. But it's a great problem to have, and I mean Kelleher is top class. You can see it in the Liverpool games he's played. He's played in probably higher pressure games than any of the other players in the squad, with the exception of the handful that have been at major tournaments and stuff like that. You know, and he's looked completely at ease. He has this sort of great style about him. You know, he sort of doesn't look like it's taken too much out of him. He executes these passes, he threads the ball out of the fence, and it's sort of like, it's actually great to watch. And for him, I mean, the sliding doors moment, if he had been fit for this window last year, this one we talked about, the Serbia away and the Luxembourg at home, Bazunu may not have played for Ireland yet, or he may not have. You know, he may not.
Yeah, no, I agree. Or if Travers even had a good game.
Serbia, it's like, you know, like it was Kelleher being injured that started that off, and I mean, look, everything that's happened since. So he probably deserves a bit of luck. With all due respect to the lads, you know, the Travers and Bazunu aren't here this week. Kelleher probably has earned this, and he gets 2 games to make his case anyway.
Yeah, I mean, he obviously came in, I think it was the Hungary game he played in.
That's right, he was quite good. Last 30 minutes he was excellent, yeah.
So I suppose just looking at that, just that's a positive straight away. There'll be a lot of Liverpool fans there who'll be delighted to see him up close in person if they haven't gone to Anfield. And then looking around the team, there's players like Conor Ronan and stuff like that. I hope he gets on the pitch, because we've seen him at 21s level, and we've obviously seen him for St Mirren this season. He's a class player, and he's someone that will excite fans, and he has some strike on him as well, so he can shoot from anywhere.
I think probably one of the maybe gaps in the squad you could say is a real number 10 player like Ronan. Like Jack Byrne would have been the one initially, and hopefully Jack can get fit, you know, get back to his best and put himself in there. Because if you look at it, Ireland's worst games last year were 2 home games here against Luxembourg and Azerbaijan, the 2 sort of weakest teams in the group as it was in the league table. That actually, when it came to playing Portugal and Serbia and teams that maybe were applying pressure on Ireland were quite good in terms of maybe soaking it up and then hitting them on the break, or, you know, but maybe when Azerbaijan came in and sat in a bit, Ireland ran out of ideas a bit at home, you know, and ended up just sort of putting crosses into the box and didn't necessarily have someone who gets a lot of touches around the area and threads little passes and stuff like that. I think that's something they need, because I think other teams are going to look at Ireland and say, okay, they now play with a little bit of pace. They play with Ogbene. They're not going to maybe want to get committed too high up and then be exposed to that break. So I think you might see teams be a small bit, the sort of weaker teams. And these are games that Ireland are going to need to win if they're going to qualify for the Euros. It's beating all the teams below them, home and away. And I think maybe what they need is that option that if you do have an opponent that's sitting in, you have these playmakers who can come on and make things happen. So I think there is a chance for Ronan there. I'm not sure if we'll see him against Belgium, to be honest. I'd say it's more likely against Lithuania, but who knows?
Yeah, it's still good to have him in the squad, and I suppose Jamie McGrath can feel a little bit hard done by, but hopefully he gets back playing and he'll be in the squad. I know we're conscious of time, so I'm just going to get your score prediction and then we'll leave it at that.
Score prediction, oh God. I actually find it very hard to predict. Like I mean, Belgium are clear favourites to win the game, but I just have this feeling. I just have a feeling Ireland won't lose it. You know, I'm sort of. I feel like it might just be a. I mean, if it's not an Ireland international that finishes 1-1, what is it? You know, I feel
1-1 win, as Gary calls it.
Yeah, I think that is possible. The one thing I would say as well, I'd like to see Will Keane get on the pitch at some stage too, because I think he's someone who. We have this tradition in Ireland of having these maybe late developing internationals who maybe their international career just starts very late because their career kicks off very late. Even the likes of John Walters and Keith Andrews and people like that who were a lot talked about when they were teenagers, then they had to go down the leagues and come back up. And I think Will Keane, it's his first full season really in almost as a professional footballer at men's level, playing uninterrupted, and it's been brilliant. So I think he's one again. There's still room for another striker to sort of put his way in there. So he might have more chance of involvement than Ronan tomorrow. I mean, I could be completely wrong, but yeah, I'm going to say 1-1 draw. Why not?
Yeah, it's fair. I actually called a 1-1 draw on the opposition preview.
Well, there we go.
I'll keep.
I'll go for a 0-0 instead, just to be different then. You know, but now maybe 1-0. Hopefully, a bit more excitement with that.
Yeah, but I think we're in a better chance of winning than we obviously would have been if they had brought their A-star team.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. And I mean, these friendly games, I just have a feeling that Ireland are probably going to be a little bit more. I don't think there'll be too much experimentation in this game, if you know what I mean. Whereas Belgium maybe in the second half might be making change after change.
Yeah, that's what they said. He might actually just swap the whole thing over half.
Well, there you go. So. Yeah, and I don't think Ireland are going to do that. So that in a way would make you think Ireland have a better chance of being competitive all the way through and getting some kind of result.
Absolutely. Well, hopefully we get some sort of positive result anyway. Huge thanks to Dan for his time. Make sure to follow him at McDonnell Dan on Twitter, and thanks very much for watching, and we'll speak to you all soon. Take care.